Hi, good afternoon and welcome. I am absolutely honoured and thrilled to be presenting this webinar version of my seminar on the 12th of February 2015 for the Waterford Institute of Technology. Before we get stuck in, I just want to give you a brief introduction to myself. So a bit of background, let you get to know me a bit. So I'm Paula Coogan. I'm the owner of the Quarter Life Coach. I live in Dublin with my husband Colin. We just got married last year, and our dog Lilo. So I founded the Quarter Life Coach business about just over 4 years ago, after discovering that I'd spent about 8 years working towards a completely different career in HR and industrial relations and law, which I ended up hating. Really was a bad fit for me. But luckily now I absolutely love what I do, and at this stage I've worked with hundreds of individuals in their 20s and 30s who feel like their life or their career is a million miles away from where they thought it would be. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm here to talk to you guys today, because you are at the beginning of a new path, a new career. So you have your aspirations for your future career and life, right? It's all ahead of you. And we want to ensure that you have every resource that you need to support you in getting you from where you are right now, which is a student, to where you want to be in your chosen profession, which I believe for many of you is within the hospitality industry. So, as I said, I work with individuals who feel like where they are in their life and their career is a million miles away from where they thought it would be. And it's not a fun place to be, and I totally get that. I do get that, but it's incredibly common. It's so common that I've built my business around this after my own personal experience, and realising that it wasn't just me who got to this kind of certain point and just said, oh crap, is this it? Is this my life for the next 40 years? So that's why I feel so privileged to be here speaking to you today, because I love coming to colleges and teaching the skills and strategies that I know you're going to need to navigate the bumps that are going to come up in your path. And the main ways that these bumps tend to manifest is feeling overwhelmed, is feeling stress, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, lack of self-respect as well, anxiety, fear, procrastination, difficulty making decisions, and this over time, all of those things over time can lead to disengagement and withdrawal. So when I was experiencing this, I actually thought there was something wrong with me. I was looking at everyone else around me and they all seemed to be getting on great, but I was struggling and I was miserable. And it took me a long time to figure my way out of that, because I didn't have the skills and I didn't have the knowledge that I'm going to share with you guys today. So from what I've been told, many of you will be choosing a profession within the hospitality and tourism industry. And this is a dynamic and fast-paced industry in which you need to be able to manage yourself. You need to be able to manage your relationships with other people. And you need to be able to manage that fast-paced environment. And that is why our main focus today is going to be on those main areas: managing yourself, managing your relationships with others, and managing your environment. So right now, we're going to delve a bit deeper into managing yourself, because this is an area which is the foundation for everything else in life, as well as your career. You need to be able to manage yourself. And what I want for you guys is to have a deeper understanding of you. And I want to raise your awareness of the new normal, because as I said, I've worked with hundreds of individuals in their 20s and 30s, and I have some insight into what occurs during that period of your life, things that we tend not to talk about very often, but just I've seen over and over and over again. I've done research into it, so I can just identify these patterns, so I can give you a heads up, really. So one of the main areas that tends to come up with individuals I work with is feeling like they're on the verge of a meltdown. You know that strange feeling when you feel completely overwhelmed, but also underwhelmed all at the same time, when you have so much to do but you're just not able to motivate yourself to do anything. And this is what can lead people to hitting all of those bumps that I mentioned to you earlier. That stress, that anxiety, that fear, that procrastination, the withdrawal. But it also leads people to feeling like they're not enough. Like they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they're not funny enough, pretty enough, confident enough, fit enough, that they don't have enough money, that they don't have enough time, all of these things. Basically just not enough, but with no idea what to do. And this is so linked to your ability to manage yourself. This is why I wanted to talk about this, because when I started out as a coach, I worked with everybody. I worked with everyone. I worked with corporate and executive clients who had fancy suits and briefcases and all that. But I noticed that I had a lot of clients in their 20s and 30s. And I could see these patterns emerging with those clients. And they were sharing their experiences and their feelings with me. And what they were saying was almost identical to how I had felt a few years previously. They spoke of meltdowns. They spoke about not knowing who they were. They talked about their life and their career not really turning out the way they'd expected it to. They talked about feeling overwhelmed and underwhelmed all at the same time. But basically feeling stuck and anxious and not really sure what to do next or where to go. Now, I personally was secretly delighted to hear all of this, because it meant that it wasn't just me. And it meant that I wasn't mad, I wasn't losing it. But at the same time, I was also really curious as to what was going on. What was happening? Why were so many people feeling this way, of this particular age group, this generation? What was happening? So I started my research, and I discovered that for our generation, which is Gen Y or millennials, is another term for it. I discovered that for us, it's taking us much, much longer to reach the traditional markers of adulthood. So things like financial independence, or having a career, a stable career, or buying our own home, or settling down, or starting a family. It's taking us much longer than previous generations. I think on average, it's something like 7 to 8 years longer to reach these markers. And this is completely new territory. This is completely different. And researchers have coined this new territory, this phase, as emerging adulthood. And they've said that it's unique to our generation. But they also found that some of the emotions that can hit us during this period are things like anxiety, uncertainty, and inner chaos. And it can occur anytime from our late teens up to our early 30s. And one of the reasons for this is because we are comparing, we're looking at, say, our parents' generation or other people, and we're thinking we should be further along, we should be settled down, we should have financial independence, we should have all of these things, but we feel like we're behind or we're lacking. So there was another term for this emerging adulthood as well, and that term is the quarter-life crisis, and I completely cracked up the first time I ever heard that term, because I thought it seemed so dramatic, or so yeah, it did seem very dramatic. But the more I looked into it, the more I researched it, the more sense it made. Because the word crisis, if you look it up in a dictionary, it doesn't mean a huge catastrophe, which I personally thought it did. It actually means a crossroads, or a turning point, or a time when we need to take decisive action. A time when we really need to step up, manage ourselves, and make a decision about our future. And this is all about like taking the initiative within our own lives. And this is one thing that I know is absolutely true, and it is one element that I've seen is at the core of this phase of emerging adulthood. And that's decisions. So I want to talk about that now. In modern society and modern culture, we've grown up and we've been bombarded with the message and the myth of having it all, of having everything. But the reality is that there is an opportunity cost for every decision that we make. And that makes things quite uncomfortable for us. So, for example, if you were deciding whether to go to college straight after school, the opportunity cost for that would be 4 years' salary and progression in a job. If you decided that you wanted to go out in a mad one every night for Rag Week, then the opportunity cost for that might be a decent grade on your midterms next week. So if you decided to commit to one person, then the opportunity cost of that would be that you can't be going off with other people. It's all of these things. With every decision that we make, there's an opportunity cost. We're losing or sacrificing the next best alternative. And this doesn't sit well for many people because, as I mentioned before, we've been raised and told that we can have it all and we can do it all. But the reality is that that is not possible. So what happens is we sit on the fence and then we get stuck there because we're not making decisions or we're not taking action out of the fear of what we might lose out on if we commit to one particular path. And that's the thing, that too many of us don't make the majority of our decisions consciously, especially really, really crucial ones. And in doing so, we pay a major price. And this is how we end up just going with the flow. And we end up being directed by the environment and by external pressures and expectations, rather than by ourselves, by our own values, the things that are most important to us. And we remain in this kind of go with the flow attitude until one day we open our eyes and say, oh crap, where am I? I'm not really happy here. This isn't a good fit for me. And that's what happened to me and to many of the clients that I've worked with. But by then it's too late, because we're going to experience a crisis, which, as I said, isn't a huge catastrophe, but it's a crossroads. It's a time when we need to take charge of our own lives and decide what we're going to do next and who we want to be. So I'm sure you're dying to know, how do we do that? And how do we take charge of our lives? How do we take control, kind of take the reins? And the answer is that we learn the skills necessary to manage ourselves and to manage our relationships with other people and to manage our environment. And we do this through learning emotional intelligence skills. I'm curious now, actually. Who has heard of IQ? I was trying to remember it there. Who's heard of IQ? I'm sure many of us have. And the other thing, who's heard of EQ? Not many people have. So I just want to give you a little brief introduction to IQ and EQ and emotional intelligence. So EQ is our people skills, our social skills, and our self-management skills. It's basically, very simply, is our ability to manage ourselves, to manage our relationships with others, and to manage our environment. And IQ is all about our intellect and our intelligence. So it's kind of book smart versus people smart. And the thing is that EQ is as important as IQ for career success. I think for about 20 years now, organisational psychologists have been saying that EQ is as important, if not more important, than IQ for career success, because your emotional intelligence is what will get you hired. It's your people skills. It's what's going to give you a great reference from an old boss. It's what will help colleagues like you. It's what will motivate you and help you get promoted, and it's what will give you job satisfaction. So we can see how emotional intelligence skills are really, really important. But I'm sure you can see this 46%, big, bold writing at the bottom. And there's a recent survey that was published on hr.com. It was in 2012, and it was conducted in association with Forbes. And they found that 46% of newly hired employees will be unsuccessful within 18 months, will fail within their role. And it is an incredible figure. It's incredibly high. But what do you think is the main reason? There's three options. Number one, a lack of technical skills to do the job. Number two, that they didn't have enough experience to take the task to the next level. Or number three, interpersonal skills. The answer is that 46% of new hires will fail within 18 months because they lack interpersonal skills. And this falls under the emotional intelligence umbrella. Interpersonal skills is knowing how to engage in adult relationships in a confident and mature way. And I'm going to be talking about this in much more detail later on because it's incredibly important, especially for the industry that many of you will be looking to pursue careers in. And there's a Harvard psychologist, Howard Gardner, and he's studied and kind of researched into the idea of multiple intelligences. So it's not just your academic intelligence or your book smarts, but some people have musical intelligence or artistic intelligence or mathematical intelligence, that there's these different intelligences. But Howard Gardner calls emotional intelligence people smarts. So it's your people smarts, and it involves recognizing and understanding the emotion of other people, of the people around us, and adapting our behavior in response. So we know, like, everyone can identify or recognize kind of deep emotions such as rage or fury or someone who's weeping with grief and heartache and heartbreak. But what we're looking at in, I suppose, from an emotional intelligence point of view, are the subtle emotions. And people with high emotional intelligence are so much better at recognizing and responding to those subtle emotions. So say, for example, you're speaking to someone and their eyes are just glazed over with boredom, but yet they're nodding and they're trying to be polite. It's like, do you notice that? Do you notice that? I'm sure you can think of a time when that was you and you're like, oh gosh, would they please stop or change the subject or whatever it is. Or say, for example, that you had something important to share with your family or friends, but when you wanted to say it, the people weren't really paying attention to you, that they didn't notice that you were trying to get their attention and they were distracted doing nothing, and you felt disrespected or exasperated. Or the other way around, maybe someone was trying to tell you something important but you weren't paying attention. So it's about being able to pick up on those subtle shifts in the people around you and to be able to adapt your behaviour accordingly. And there's another element of emotional intelligence, and that is being able to manage yourself, really. That's so important. And it's kind of self-smarts. And by that I mean the ability to recognise your own emotional states. So I want you to just, I suppose while you're listening to this, just stop for a minute and just do a little check-in with yourself. And pay attention to your physical state. How does your body feel? I mean, are you shifting in your seat? Are you moving are you trying to get more comfortable? If you are, then it probably says that you weren't really aware that you were uncomfortable in the first place. So think about it. Are you relaxed? Are you tense? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you full of energy? What's your state? Check your emotional state as well. Are you bored? Are you curious? Are you feeling restless? Are you anxious? How are you feeling? The ability to be aware of what you're feeling while you're feeling it is part of emotional intelligence. It's not just knowing what you're feeling, but also being able to control it. This is the key thing. It's not only recognizing your emotions, but being able to control them. So a lot of the time, and this is what I hear and I've seen and I've been there myself, a lot of the time when it comes to emotions, we behave like these puppets, puppets on a string, as if emotions just happen to us and there is nothing that we can do about it. As if it completely takes us over and we have no choice. But that just isn't accurate, it's just not true. There's a lot that we can do. And by learning and studying and practicing emotional intelligence skills, we can learn to take control of our own emotional state, which means that we can cut the strings and take control of our own life. And the thing is, people with really strong emotional intelligence can get themselves to do things, whether or not they're in the mood to do it or not, because their emotions are not in control of them. They are in control of their emotions. And one of the most important things that I want you to note and I want you to remember is that emotional intelligence is skill-based. This means that it can be learned, it can be practiced, and it can be developed. This is something I was clueless about for years. But the thing is that you might have two students with a very similar IQ in class. They sit side by side. But the student who spends time practicing and developing their emotional intelligence skills will progress and do so much better because they're going to be able to self-motivate. They're going to be able to get themselves to study when they're not in the mood. They're going to be able to get themselves to listen to something even if they find it boring. They're going to engage more. They're going to ask more questions. But the thing is, everyone has to start from somewhere. And as I said, I never even heard of emotional intelligence until I was 26. I had no idea whatsoever that confidence, that valuing myself, that building relationships with other people was a skill. And not only was it a skill, but it was a skill that I could actually practice. I just labelled myself as being shy and unworthy. But since then, practicing emotional intelligence skills has really changed my life. And remember, everything improves with practice. So I want to invite you guys, as students, to not just study and learn from your books and your lecturers, but to practice and develop your emotional intelligence skills as well. And right now, that is exactly what we're going to delve into. So there are 15 key emotional intelligence skills, but I've identified the top 5 that you guys are going to need to really succeed within the hospitality and tourism industries. And I'm going to break these skills down for you, and then we're going to spend about 20 minutes on some exercises to help you identify where you are currently with these skills and how you can build on them and practice and develop. So the main skills that we're going to focus on today do fall into the 3 categories of managing yourself, managing other people, and managing your environment. But we're going to look at, within managing yourself, we're going to look at self-regard, we're going to look at self-actualization, we're going to look at assertiveness, and under managing other people's, we're going to look at your interpersonal relationships. And under managing your environment, we're going to take a good look at managing stress, so stress control and optimism. So, give it a little shake. Let's get ready to get stuck in. Grab a pen and paper as well. So, we're going to start with managing yourself and self-regard. So, let me see. There is so much that I could speak to you guys about under the heading of self-regard and confidence. And I have to admit, I really struggled to narrow it down. But when I reviewed my notes with private clients over the last few years, one of the main things that jumped out as being the kryptonite to confidence and self-respect was negative self-talk. So basically, we've developed this awful tendency to be our own worst enemy and our own biggest critic. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that you'd never dream of speaking to a friend the way that you speak to yourself sometimes. And the thing is, the confidence and valuing myself was something that I always struggled with. And I used to joke and laugh and say that it was a pity I never joined a debating team, because by the time I was in my late teens, I had so much practice. There was this never-ending debate going on in my head about everything. It was as if I had a split personality. I'd want to do something, and then I'd have that little voice in my head undermining me and saying things like, oh, be careful, you could screw it up, you could make a show of yourself. And the more that I wanted to try and grow and learn and experience, the more I doubted myself, and the more that inner voice of self-doubt spoke up. And it got to the point that on far too many occasions I listened to it, and I held myself back. And when I left college and I was looking for my first real job, and interestingly, even though my profession was HR and industrial relations, it was into the hospitality and tourism industry. It was in a hotel. But that was my first role. But in that job, I had such low self-esteem. I had such low confidence because I kept beating myself up. And when I was applying for jobs, I was telling myself that there was so much competition, that I didn't have enough experience. I was down on myself, and there were so many occasions when I felt small, and I told myself I wouldn't be good enough, that I told myself there'd be so many better candidates, and I told myself that I was going to be rejected, so there was no point in even putting in applications. And I didn't realise it at the time, but I was completely disrespecting myself and not placing any value on who I was and what I had to offer. I wasn't managing myself very well. I was doing the opposite. So in the live seminar that I did, I wanted to show you guys the enormous effect that negative self-talk has on your entire being, and how it kind of affects not only your confidence and your self-esteem, but also your energy levels and physiologies. So I asked for a volunteer to come up, and thankfully they did, and they helped to prove a point. You're going to have to ask people if you weren't there. I don't have a video of it, unfortunately. But the point is, anyway, that everyone has their own little critic or little gremlin, whatever you want to call it, your saboteur, your mind monkey, whatever. Everyone has this little voice inside their head. And often people think that that inner voice, that negative, critical voice in their head, is who they really are and who they ever will be. And that is an absolute lie. It's simply doubts and fear that you've learned and that you've adopted as you've gone through life. But the people that you admire, who seem to ooze confidence and charisma, they've simply learned how to deal with and shut off that negative self-talk. And there's strategies and techniques that they've used or that they are using to help promote confidence, to promote that self-regard and self-esteem and self-respect within themselves. And I'm going to share some of those strategies with you guys now. So here they are, the four steps. So the first one is to acknowledge, to acknowledge that you're getting in your own way, which is hard sometimes. But the thing is, you can't overcome something until you first recognize and acknowledge that it's there, its existence. So if we ignore this negative self-talk and if we ignore this self-doubt, it's still going to be there whether we like it or not. And what happens is it stops us moving forward. It holds us back. And the bottom line is that you need to deal with it, because it won't go away unless you sacrifice your progress. So the better you become at identifying these doubts, the easier it's going to be to overcome them. So say, for example, you have an exam and you don't feel particularly confident about it, and you're telling yourself that you're probably going to fail. What are your chances that you're going to be able to motivate yourself to study or to work harder for it? The chances would be slim to none if that is your self-talk. So this is what happens. You're getting in your own way, and you're entering into what's called learned helplessness. So the key thing here is to ask yourself, what triggered this? Why am I feeling this way? Because information is power, and you're starting to take back your power that way. So the next step is then to create a plan. So once you acknowledge the existence of these doubts and this negative self-talk, you start to become aware of the pattern, and you have an idea as to, okay, I could do something differently here. So I want you to sit down and plan out a strategy for overcoming it. So for the exam example, just ask yourself, okay, what small step could I take right now that will help me feel more prepared for this exam? Is there anyone I could ask for help? That kind of thing. So instead of just being mean to yourself and beating yourself up and getting yourself down, this is you stepping up into your power, into your personal power, and taking control of your emotions rather than your emotions controlling you. So you're getting yourself to do something even when at the beginning you may not want to. And it's a skill that you're developing, and this is going to get stronger and stronger with time and with practice. And I'd also say put that plan on writing. So the third step is then to take action. Take action and be flexible. So once you have the plan in writing, try to identify some possible challenges along the way and decide what you're going to do about them. So this is going to add to your confidence because you're going to feel more prepared. So using the above example of an exam, perhaps speak to your lecturer or form a study group and go through past exam papers together. Sometimes a little support and encouragement is all it takes. And the more you practice it, the more it develops and grows. And the fourth one is to bank it, right? Now this is one of my favourite strategies for increasing self-regard. And yes, it does sound very cheesy, but I promise you that it works. This strategy is about banking your successes. So by this I mean taking a small notebook, a journal, or you can even use an app on your phone, and making a note every day of 3 or 4 things that you did that demonstrated self-respect or self-regard or confidence in yourself or in your ability, in anything. And this could be from your personal life, your college life, your work life. It doesn't matter, but do try and get a balance from the main areas. And the reason why this works is because it gets you to pay attention to what you're doing well, rather than the autopilot of what we normally do, of giving out stink to ourselves for our shortcomings and what we aren't doing well at. Because when you focus on what's working for you, you tend to do more of it and you get better at it. So after only 1 month of doing this, you will possibly end up with about 100 things that you've done to demonstrate that you are using this emotional intelligence skill. And it can be very useful, because when you have a lousy day, which you will because you're human and that's what happens, you can look over this success bank and you can make a withdrawal. So you can kind of acknowledge yourself, and that'll help you bounce back quicker. I found that really, really, really helpful. So I hope you guys do too. The next emotional intelligence skill, I was trying to remember there, the next emotional intelligence skill that we're going to look at is self-actualization. It's a bit of a mouthful, but really what it means is happiness. But happiness from meaning, as opposed to happiness from fluff. So happiness from something that's true and meaningful to you, as opposed to getting a new coat or something small. So I suppose from working with so many people over the last few years, as I said, I've seen these patterns that emerge. And a pattern that really stuck out the most is the questions that people are asking themselves that make them miserable. And I can totally relate to this because I was doing this as well. So the 2 questions that you're asking yourself that can make you miserable are what do I want and how do I get it? Okay, yes, I'm sure you can remember yourself asking those questions of yourself at some point. But see, the funny thing is that often we're not 100% sure what we want. So we tend to look around us and try and figure out what we should want. And we're told by others what we'd be good at. We're told kind of what constitutes a proper job or a proper relationship. And we're influenced by our friends, our families, our parents, our media, culture, all of these things. We're influenced in all areas of life. And we're conditioned to move towards things that we're told we should want. So many people make decisions based on this conditioning, based on what they think they should want. But anyway, then we ask the second question. We say, okay, I think I know what I want now, so how do I get that? And we're told the path. And it's generally work very hard, kind of put your head down, keep quiet, keep going. So we duly oblige. We work really hard and we pursue that path, only to get there and realise that this isn't where I want to be. This isn't a good fit for me. And this is what I mentioned earlier about how so many people I work with end up in a place that they're unhappy with. So if we're lucky and if we have the resources, we may be able to go back a step and ask the first question again. And we say, okay, that didn't work. That didn't bring me somewhere that I wanted to be. So what do I want now? And what happens is we spin ourselves right back into the same loop again. So these 2 questions, they keep us stuck and they keep us miserable. They waste our time, our energy and our money, because we just keep spinning and spinning and spinning and surviving and firefighting without making any real progress. And if you've done this for a long period of time, what happens is you start to lose faith in yourself. You don't trust yourself anymore. So even decisions get harder and harder to make, because you kind of think, oh gosh, well, I went down that path the last time and that didn't work. So obviously I can't make a decision for myself. But the thing is that, as I said, you were looking around you. you were being influenced by other things. And this is something that I did as well, and I was spinning for a good while before I realised that there was something wrong with the strategy. It wasn't working because I was really tired and I was burnt out, but I was getting nowhere. So I want you to have a look at the 3 questions, okay? So these are 3 questions that really help us progress and find real happiness in our lives and in our careers. And these 3 questions, honestly, the answers to them, they honestly did change my life, and they've changed the lives of so many people that I've worked with. And you need to know the answers to these 3 questions to find that real happiness and self-actualization in your life and in your career. And you need to discover the answers in this exact order. Which is number 1, the question, who am I? Number 2, what do I want? And number 3 is all about why. Why do I want it? So I just want to look at each of these questions in a bit more detail now. And again, this is an emotional intelligence skill, managing yourself. And you do that by understanding yourself. So the first question there, who am I? I mean, how could we forget this most basic question? But to be honest with you, the first time I asked this of myself, I hadn't a clue. I couldn't answer it without just saying, I'm a Paula, I'm a Virgo, like that kind of thing. But really the question is all about getting to the core of you. What makes you tick? What do you enjoy? What is most important to you in life? What's most important to you in your career? What do you value? What's your favourite subject? Why? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about other people? What do you believe about the world? What shapes you? What did you love to do when you were a kid? What was your favourite game? What do you do that demonstrates self-love and self-respect? What makes you you? What's fun for you? You see, the thing is, you are completely unique. You have a unique set of skills, life experiences, passions, characteristics, traits, thoughts, and emotions to anybody else. So, this is the thing. Do you think it might be worthwhile to spend some time getting to know yourself first before you make these big decisions about what it is that you want to do or where you want to go? Trust me, it's not as difficult as it sounds, and really it's just all about paying attention to who you are and what makes you happy. And it's about paying attention when you do feel happy and noticing what it is that you feel drawn to. So the second question is, what do I want? And we've met that before, but I assure you that the answer for so many people is completely different if they've actually spent some time getting to know themselves and checking in with themselves first. Because there's clarity, there's confidence, and a huge boost to your self-esteem when you ask, what do I want, aligned with the knowledge of who you are. So opportunity costs can be managed better as well because, well, they can't be avoided completely because they're always going to be there, but they can be managed better because you know that you're making the best decision for you, not trying to live up to somebody else's expectations or based on what other people think. And this is the thing, that expectations can be a major influencer for us when it comes to deciding what we want. So I just want to talk briefly about this as well, because the thing is, some people have no problem at all with peer pressure or expectation. They're kind of these self-declared rebels who've been forging their own path since the age of 2, but and without caring or having any worries what their parents or their siblings or their teachers or what anyone else might think. But the rest of us humans find that other people's expectations and other people's opinions can sometimes start to run and rule our lives a bit. And in some ways it's not really surprising at all, because as humans we are social creatures. Human beings are social creatures, and if we behave in a way that raises a lot of eyebrows and causes disapproval within our group, our social group, we risk being excluded, or we risk being rejected by that group or that community. And we don't like that, so we try not to do that. We try and conform. And an extra factor is that I suppose girls especially, we've been raised to be people pleasers. And as kids, we just delighted in the praise from parents and teachers. And as we grow up, we kind of continue seeking this as well. So the thing is, you need to get clear about who you are, about what's most important to you, and about what your priorities are. And then you can figure out what you want to focus your career around. So even within the hospitality and tourism industry, it's a huge, huge field. So there's so many different things that you could do, so many different jobs that you could work in. So it's about you really finding, what would I love best? What would be the best fit for me? Not what do I think would be the best in terms of what other people would think, that way. So your friends and family might laugh at you if you say, okay, I want to do XYZ. They might laugh at you. They might think that you flipped. Don't ignore their advice, but don't be afraid of what they think or how you choose to live your life. This is about what you want for you, not what they want for you. So the third question within this self-actualization, I'm sure you can see how this brings you to true happiness and happiness from meaning, from you pursuing something that is just so important to you. So the third question to ask within that is, why do I want it? And I call that the safety net question, because if the word should is in your answer, then I want the Star Trek red alert, that noise to play in your head. Because by asking this question, you are making sure that you own your decision, that you own it. You own your own decision. To make sure that there's no influence, there's no interference from people who are not you. To make sure that it is in sync with who you are. So say, for example, say your mother has this idea for you that, wouldn't you just be absolutely fantastic as a wedding coordinator in this fancy hotel or something like that. And the thought of that would just make your skin crawl. But you end up kind of going along that route to try and please or to try and make people happy. That's the kind of thing. This is the safety net question. Why do I want it? And to make sure that the word should isn't there. So you need to make sure that whatever it is that you choose to do with your life and with your career, that you approach it asking, firstly, who am I? Getting to know yourself, what makes you tick, what's really going to give you satisfaction, give you joy. Asking yourself, well, what is it that I want based on knowing me, and using that safety net. Why? Your reasons are really, really important. So, as I said, if you approach your life and your career asking those questions, you're going to have greater clarity about who you are and what you want to offer the world. You're going to know exactly what you want and what you need to prioritize as a result. And you'll know the motivation behind your desires. You'll know your why. And the why is really, really important, because that's going to be the driving force to get you to take action. And you'll have more confidence, you'll have more focus, and you'll have more passion. So you'll figure out the how, you'll figure out how to do it from there. Now, I know this doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is one of the most powerful and simplest ways to take control of your emotions and take control of your life and your career path. How you feel about the decisions that you make. And more importantly, it's a fantastic way to take control of how you feel about yourself. This is self-actualization. Pursuing something with passion because of the true happiness that you will feel as a result. Knowing who you are, knowing what you want and why you want it, and respecting and honouring that. Do you think that will help you manage yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely it will. So, where are we? We are on skill number 3, which is assertiveness. So, this is still within the realm of managing yourself. So we're looking at assertiveness, which means being assertive means standing up for yourself, expressing your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs in a direct, honest, and appropriate way. So I suppose note the word appropriate is what I have marked and highlighted there. And this is really important because I suppose, you see, by being assertive, we always respect the thoughts, feelings and beliefs of other people. And there's a lot of reasons. This is really important. It's important to build your assertiveness skills for a number of reasons. So I have 4 here. I'm just going to break them down a bit for you. So the first one is it gives you an improved self-image. And your self-image refers to the way you see yourself, the way you view yourself. And the way you see yourself or the way you view yourself, it affects the way you view the world. So if you have a negative self-image, you may adopt a kind of negative or pessimistic view of the world, and you might fail to see any opportunities there for you to succeed or for you to kind of get a step up or get a promotion. And when you choose to be assertive, you adopt a realistic self-image. You don't see yourself as superior to others, which is an aggressive behavioural style, and you don't see yourself you don't see other people as being superior to you, so which is a kind of a passive behavioural style if you think that other people are more important. You accept that you're of equal value to others, and your sense of self-worth and self-respect, this again, you can see how all of these skills are linked, but your sense of self-worth and self-respect reflects that. So when you adopt that view, you realise that everyone in the world has their own preferences. So you're not always going to have your personal preferences met. But you know that for the same reason, you're not always going to be able to meet the preferences of other people. So understanding that allows you to deal with occasions when you can't meet the preferences of others and they can't meet the preferences of you, and that that's okay. So the second thing is that it gives you an improved understanding of others, which again is really, really important. But when you behave in an assertive way, you learn to view other people in a more realistic context. So rather than seeing people as a threat, you realise that, okay, they're simply trying to achieve their objectives. So when other people make a request of you, they do so because they believe that you are the best person to help them achieve that particular objective. So rather than seeing people as competition, you start kind of to see them as people that you can collaborate with. And these people offer you the opportunity to work together to achieve really good benefits for both parties. It's about kind of cooperation, collaboration, and both of you getting what it is that you want, as much of a win-win as possible. And assertive people, so people who behave in an assertive way and who adopt that kind of approach, they also understand that people choose their own emotions. So again, being assertive means that you will have higher levels of emotional intelligence because it's something that you've practiced. It's something that you've been working on. And you understand that you do have control over your emotions, that you can work on it. So if someone is upset because you didn't agree to their request, you realise that they choose to feel upset and it's not you who made them feel that way. So this is again taking control of the emotions. So the third reason why this is important is because it adds to your awareness, which is something that's very important, and it also adds to your self-regard and confidence. So when you choose to be assertive, you have this greater respect for your own opinions. You realise that not only do you have the right to your own opinion, you have the right to express that opinion. So it's emotional awareness and emotional expression as well. So even when you feel that your opinion won't be accepted, you're still going to be comfortable to express that opinion. And that does build your confidence, and it saves you from spending time going over the whole situation in your head again and again and again of what you wished you'd said. I know you guys have done that before. It's like, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that, and why didn't I do this and why didn't I do that? It's going to save you a hell of a lot of time when you work on assertiveness, that you actually can express how you feel, you're aware of how you feel, and you can express it at the appropriate time. So the more assertive you become, the clearer you become about who you are. So again, it fits and it's linked. So you gain this better awareness of your identity, of your values, of your beliefs, of your likes, of your dislikes, and you're comfortable expressing your views. And when other people disagree, you're happy to agree to disagree. You don't feel any sense of loss when you agree to disagree, and nor do you feel that you have like you've upset anybody. It's your right to have your opinion, and it's their right to have theirs. So the fourth reason why it's important is that it's going to give you more time. It's going to give you more energy when you're assertive. So when you choose to be assertive, you express your views clearly and the issues get dealt with there and then. You don't need to spend time and energy thinking about the issue unless it reoccurs at a later stage. So put yourself in a work environment where there is a problem and you need to deal with it. When you are assertive, you deal with it there and then in a way that is respectful towards everyone involved. That is such an important skill to have, and it absolutely will lead to opportunities and progression for you. When you're aggressive, you see other people as a threat and you constantly fear some sort of attack. And this creates a lot of stress. It wastes a great deal of energy and you lose a lot of productive time. It's also difficult for people to approach someone who's going to behave in that way. So if you're in a managerial position and you have this aggressive behavioral style, your employees are not going to come to you because they're going to feel that they're going to be attacked or something like that. On the other hand, with passive behavior, you don't express your views and you let situations build up. And then you spend your time and your energy kind of going over that incident again and again in your head, thinking about what you could have done differently. And I suppose what's worse is that if the situation just continues on and it's not dealt with, like, I suppose you'd be only human, you probably snap. And if you snap outwardly by becoming aggressive with other people, you just end up creating this mess, which takes time to repair. But if you snap inwardly, which a lot of people do, that's when you turn on yourself and that become very self-critical, like those mind monkeys that we talked about in the self-regard. We're talking about stress will come up here, and that's an area we're going to look at now in a few minutes. But this is why it's so important to build this skill of assertiveness, because it gives you improved self-image, it gives you improved understanding of others, improved self-awareness and confidence, and more time and energy. So choosing to be assertive, it requires effort and commitment and time. And things don't always go smoothly, and there can be an initial period of discomfort for both you and the people that you interact with. And dynamics of relationships will change, especially if you do this within, say, a family environment. It can be quite different because people are used to you behaving in a certain way, and with you working on a different scale or responding in a different way to them, it will cause a bit of tension and things like that. But it's worth reminding yourself that what you're seeking to do is really purely respecting yourself and respecting the other people around you. You're choosing to operate from a position of equality. So assertiveness allows you to be the best person that you can be while helping other people to get the best from themselves. And absolutely, that making the transition can be a bit rocky at the beginning, but the rewards far outweigh the difficulties, and this is something that you get better and better and better at with practice. And it's great as well, maybe get a buddy, do you know what I mean, a close friend or something that you can say, right, both of us are going to be more assertive and allow ourselves to kind of practice. So you might have a friend that you might both be a bit passive, or one of you is passive, one of you is aggressive, and you just buddy up and say, okay, we're both going to be more assertive, and we can hold each other accountable for that as well. So it's one of those things, you just got to do it, and once you start to experience the benefits of it, you'll realise that it was really one of the best skills that you've ever put effort into, and one of the best decisions that you've ever made. So that is assertiveness. So we're going to move on to managing your relationships with others, and this is the interpersonal skills that we touched on earlier. So interpersonal skills involves your personal presentations, how you present yourself, your communication skills. It also involves your initiative, how if you take initiative, and your leadership, as well as teamwork skills. So do you remember the survey I mentioned earlier, in which found that 46% of new hires will fail within 18 months, and that the main reason was due to a lack of interpersonal skills. So we're talking about their personal presentation, their demeanour, their body language, facial expression, communication skills, their verbal, non-verbal, and their ability to work as a team. I want to do another survey with you. It's from the same piece of research. But I want you guys to spend a minute and just look at these 5 statements and put them in the highest percentage order. So, did most people fail because they weren't able to accept feedback, or due to the fact that they were unable to understand and manage their emotions? Or was it because they lacked the necessary motivation? Or did they have the wrong temperament for the job? Or did they lack key skills? So which is the highest, which is the lowest in terms of their reasons? Okay, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, move on. The top reason was 26%, and it was a fail due to they couldn't accept feedback. The second, so they were in the right order. Anyway, the order hasn't changed. So the second reason was that they were unable to understand and manage their emotions. The third reason was because they lacked the necessary motivation. And the fourth was that they were the wrong temperament for the job. And lastly, it was because they lacked key skills. So of that 46% that failed within 18 months, 89% of those individuals did so because they lacked emotional intelligence skills, interpersonal skills. And only 11% of those was due to know-how or technical ability, the actual skill based for the job. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, this skill is incredibly important for your particular industry. So I wanted to give you 5 ways that you can build on this skill and develop it. So the first one is to be appreciative. And this is common sense. A lot of emotional intelligence skills is common sense. And it is something that we need to be aware of and build on, because it can be quite simple. So the first way is to be appreciative. So find one positive thing about everyone that you work with and let them know it. And this, if you're not in a work situation, then within your study group or within your group of friends, do you know what I mean? This is a way to build your interpersonal skills as well. Be generous with your praise and your words of encouragement. Simple things like saying thank you when someone helps you. So make group members feel welcome if they call or if they ask questions. And the thing is that if you let other people know that they're appreciated, they'll want to give you their best. So from a work perspective or a managerial perspective, you can see how that works. And you can see how that would work for you as well. So the second thing you could do, again, common sense, to pay attention to other people. So observe what's going on in other people's lives. We can get so caught up with our own stuff that we forget. We aren't aware of what's going on. So acknowledge kind of happy milestones in other people's lives and express concern or sympathy for difficult situations that they might have, such as maybe there's an illness in the family or something like that. Make eye contact with people. Ask other people for their opinions. The third way is to practice active listening. Okay? Different from just normal listening. To actively listen is to demonstrate that you intend to hear and understand someone else's point of view. So it means restating or summarising or clarifying in your own words what the other person has said. And this way you know that you've understood their meaning, and they know that whatever you say to them in response is more than just lip service, that you're actually paying attention to them. So people will appreciate that because they know that you really will listen to what it is that they have to say. So in terms of group exercises or assignments or projects or team building or teamwork, people will appreciate that because they know that you're the type of person who listens to their ideas. The fourth way to build your interpersonal skills is to bring people together, and by that I mean to kind of create an environment that encourages other people to work together. So for you to be known as someone who treats people equally, that you don't play favourites with people, that you follow up on people's suggestions or requests. And things like when you make a statement or you make an announcement in a project or something like that, check to make sure that you've been understood. If people see you as someone who's solid and someone who is fair, they're going to grow to trust you, and that will help people kind of move towards you, so that you would take up that central role. The fifth way is to communicate clearly, which is about paying close attention to what you say and how you say it. So clear and effective communicator will avoid misunderstandings with co-workers, with colleagues and peers and customers. Verbal eloquence, got that word, I always get that word mixed up, but it projects this image of intelligence and maturity no matter what age you are. And if you tend to kind of just blurt out anything that comes to mind, people won't put much weight on your words or your opinions. So take that moment, take that time, think about what it is that you're going to say. I don't have it in here, but one of the 15 emotional intelligence skills is impulse control, which is a really, really interesting one. But this is another area, it's linked in this way, in terms of kind of managing yourself and managing that relationship, that you check in with yourself, you take that time and you check in and you pay attention to what you're about to do and what you're about to say, and that as well, it helps with the impulse control. So that is the interpersonal skills. As you can see, it is very, very simple. But it's to consciously practice this, consciously develop it, and you see that in terms of the statistics, the difference that this could potentially make for you and for your career. So let me see, the last skill that we're going to look at today is about stress tolerance and optimism, and this falls under the category of managing your environment. So the most common form of stress is a mix of anxiety and feeling kind of flat or sad. And we all have stress in our lives. It's normal. It is very, very normal. And we all know that some days can be worse than others due to whatever we have on our plate at any given moment. But stress in itself isn't a problem. It's not a problem to have some stress in your life. And some people thrive on having that deadline. Do you know what I mean? If you know that an assignment is due in on Sunday, you might have known for 3 weeks, but that kind of the Wednesday beforehand, you start to get stressed, and that kind of kicks it off, and you really get stuck into it then. So some people thrive on that. But stress does become a problem when we feel that we can't control it, when the pressure on us outweighs our ability to cope. So this is when we feel under pressure or that we can't cope, then we tend to take a negative or very pessimistic view of the world. So everything we've been talking about today in terms of emotional intelligence, it aims to help you learn better ways of managing yourself and your relationship, which in turn is going to give you better coping skills for stress. Because when you're experiencing stress, you can feel like your mind is taken over. And it's that like you're losing control of your life, or that you're just cracking up. And right this very minute, there's like 1 in 5 people have a problem with stress. And I don't mean just feeling down, but I mean a real problem that is making them feel miserable and is affecting their day-to-day life. And that same figure, 1 in 5, is found right across the world. And these figures are taken from Dr. Jim White's course on stress control. Now that's from 2007. But it's interesting statistics. And one of the main reasons why stress can become a problem is because we don't look after ourselves properly. As I said, a lot of this is common sense. Emotional intelligence is common sense as well. And I remember I was at a group coaching session with a coach that I really deeply admire. I've been working with her for many, many years on and off, and she was the coach that trained me. And we were in this room. There was 5 or 6 other fully qualified coaches, and we were being coached by her, and we were working on our goals. And she was asking how committed we were to achieving them. And the rest of the group were really enthusiastic. They were shouting out, hell yeah, 100%, or I'm 120%, it's going to happen, I can't wait to get started. And then it was my turn. And she asked me how committed I was to my goals. And I said, honestly, maybe about 50%, or no, actually really probably about 40%. And the thing was, I so desperately wanted what I wanted, but I just didn't have the drive that I needed to really get excited about it, or to get passionate about putting in the work, putting in the effort, because it seemed like so much effort, and it made me tired. It made me tired and stressed and overwhelmed to even think about starting on these goals. And for a second I thought she was going to ask me to leave. But then she said something. She said the magic sentence. She said to me, Paula, the percentage of your wellness equals the percentage of your success. And it clicked. She had me sussed completely. No wonder I was only about 40-ish% committed to achieving what I wanted to achieve. I was exhausted. I was a grumpy guts. I was stressed. My sleeping pattern was all over the place. My recycling bin was brimming with takeaway Chinese and pizza boxes. And at the time, I suppose sleep-wise, I was probably averaging about 7 nights or 7 hours a night. But I was going to bed at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So sometimes I got 3 hours sleep, sometimes I crashed for 12 hours. I felt like I didn't deserve to have fun, or I didn't deserve to relax, because there was so much to do and I hadn't earned the right to have a time out, to take a break. I was eating crap, I was getting no exercise, I was going to bed stressed and annoyed with myself, and I was feeling guilty when I was with my friends or my family, because I wasn't there, I wasn't present with them. My mind was distracted, it was on overdrive, because I was thinking I should be doing all these other things that I haven't gotten the time to. I hadn't even contemplated changing my lifestyle. And there's a brilliant researcher and author called Brené Brown. And in one of her books, she described a conversation that she had with her therapist. And I just want to share this with you. She said, I feel like a turtle without a shell in a briar patch. So she's getting prodded. I need a shell. What can you give me? And her therapist replied saying, well, I've an idea. Why don't you just get out of the briar patch? You're getting poked and prodded and hurt, not because you don't have a shell, but because you're living in a briar patch. I really like that. I hope you do too. But that really resonated with me so much, because I wanted a shell. I wanted something that I could just put on and keep going and just get going, just keep on keeping on, doing exactly what I was doing. But no, I realised that I had to get out of the briar patch and change my lifestyle. And so when I thought about stress and stress tolerance and optimism, and I thought about myself and my personal experience and the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, and we all have something in common. We get stressed and burnt out when we don't take care of ourselves. So what about you guys? Like, are you operating at reduced wellness? Are you expecting yourself to be able to give 100% to your college when you are operating at only 20 or 30%? This is what we do all the time. And it leads to stress, it leads to overwhelm and negativity. So the question is, where are you at? Where are you at now? Are you looking after yourself? What is your wellness percentage? And have you ever thought about this concept before? Does it resonate with you? See, everything else that we've discussed today will help and support you in building your emotional intelligence skills, and they're all equally important. However, in saying that, I would really, really encourage you to get into the habit of looking after your wellness as a priority, because when we have that strong foundation of emotional, physical and mental well-being, we're in a much stronger position to learn these new behaviours, to adapt, to pay attention, and to bounce back when life knocks us off course. We're more resilient when we're well. So I know we've covered a lot. It's probably an hour or so that we've been talking, or that I've been talking. So what I want you guys to do, I know if you're listening to this, hopefully you will also have a copy of the workbook, which has the emotional intelligence wheel. And I want you to just take some time out, pause this for a few minutes, maybe about 15-20 minutes or so, and have a look through that workbook and work through it. So it's talking about the emotional intelligence areas that I've talked about already. And I want you guys to just think about the questions that are in it. There's 6 questions. If you're stuck with any of this, please feel free to drop me an email and ask me, or ask people who have attended the live seminar, because I'm sure the question has come up and hopefully addressed. But if you are stuck with anything, please feel free to drop me an email and I'll talk you through it. So press pause now if you're going to work on it. If not, I'm just going to keep going, but please do the exercises. They're really important. So I'm going to continue with this now, so you pause it if you need to. So anyway, the final thing that I'm going to talk to you about today is becoming a leader in your own life and becoming a leader to yourself. This is one strategy that I know is really, really powerful, and it's very true, yet it's one that I struggled the most with, and it's something that, again, to be honest, I would still struggle with. And it is the concept, or the idea, that the only person in charge of your life is you. So in other words, you are responsible for making it happen. And you must take 100% responsibility for your own life and for the skills that you choose to develop and put time into. So you are in charge of how you think, how you feel, what you say, what you do. You're in charge of what you're exposed to with regards to the books you read, the people that you choose to spend time with, the films that you watch, and what you let into your world. So the thing is that we all need to step up and be a leader. So you need to step up and be a leader to yourself. So just imagine for a moment that you are someone who is in charge of you. That it's your job, to look after you. And it's your job to look after your progress in life, in your career. That it is your job to lead you to what you truly want. To figure out, who am I, what do I want, and why you want it. How would you approach your life differently if you took responsibility for it and became your own leader? It's something to ponder. It's something to ponder anyway. Have a think about it. If I was my own boss, what would I do? So I hope you have found this seminar helpful, that you found it beneficial. My intention for you today was to raise your awareness of the new development stage or phase of emerging adulthood, that's the new normal for our generation. And this phase, it can lead to anxiety, a bit of chaos as well, but it doesn't have to be a huge catastrophe, because if we look at it for what it really is, it's a crossroads. It's a time in your life when you really need to make a decision as to which way you're going to go, who you're going to be. We spoke as well about the myth of having it all, and that with every decision there's an opportunity cost, and that we basically need to get comfortable with this and stop sitting on the fence. We need to get to know ourselves and live our lives authentically, make career choices authentically, following our own passions and our own principles, rather than being boxed in by fear or by what other people think and what their expectations would be for us. And we talked about emotional intelligence and how you can take control of your life and your career and where you're going by practicing and developing emotional intelligence skills. And the ones we really focused on were self-regard, which was taming those mind monkeys, that inner critic in your head, and learning to bank your successes, paying attention to what works for you. We also talked about self-actualization, which is happiness from meaning as opposed to the happiness from fluff. And that you can find that by asking yourself the 3 questions: who am I? What do I want? And why do I want it? We talked about assertiveness, which is learning to stand up for yourself and express your thoughts and your feelings and your beliefs in a direct and honest and appropriate ways. We also spoke about interpersonal skills, and we saw how 46% of new hires will fail within 18 months due to a lack of interpersonal skills. And we talked about the 5 ways that you can build your skills in this area, and that they're very simple and common sense, and you can start working on them immediately. And we also we looked at stress control and optimism. And that really is all about learning how to look after your wellness as a foundation for your life. And finally, the last thing we did look at was becoming a leader to yourself, that you're the one who is in charge of you. So it's your job to lead yourself to where you want to go. And that is how you move from where you are right now to anywhere that you want to go in life, in your career, whatever it is. So what is next? I think in the live seminar, absolutely, I did time for a Q&A, so there was Q&As done. If you do have any questions, as I said, please feel free to drop me a line, drop me an email at paula@myquarterlifecoach.com. I'm sure you can get the website details, or you'd have the website details at the bottom in the footnotes of the workbook, so feel free to get in touch. And I suppose this isn't relevant for you either because you're listening to this as well, but just in the live seminar I just let people know that for anyone that wants it, which you did and you got it, I'm going to send over this recording to Angela, so you can go through it again in your own time. This is always going to be available to you if you have the link, so please do go through it again, maybe go through it a couple of times. Repetition is key. And as I said, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch. And thanks a million for your time and for your attention. I'll talk to you soon, and best of luck. Bye.